you are caring for the health care of people, please don't be skewed by their race, their religion, or the color of their skin. My name is Dr. Mary Starke Harper, and I was born in September the 6th, 1919, and I was born at Fort Mitchell, Alabama. I have never seen the place, but that's where I was born.
Well, what I learned from my aunt is hard work and determination, and to always think for yourself. Always be an independent thought, in which I take that advice dearly, and I carry it with me every day.
I've known Dr. Harper for 30 years, a little more. She is my mentor and the mother of my career, so I'm quite grateful to her.
When I raised up, we looked for the oldest one for direction, and so she is my direction in life. I appreciate that.
She's a wonderful teacher, even though I've never had her teach me a class. She's an advisor. She is a ferocious advocate, and I think that's one of the things about her that I appreciate the most. And she surrounds herself with other people who feel the same way.
I think I know the system, from top to bottom, and I know how people can negotiate the system. And I think I'm almost an expert in Washington.
If she had accomplished things because of the system rather than in spite of it, then there's no telling what else we would be giving her praise for.
During the time, you might say there was Harriet Tubman and all the other icons, but for this family here, Mary is our icon.
I have a debt to society from bringing me from the background and the roots of segregated society and reared. I have a commitment in my heart to improve the quality of clinical care and to improve the quality of research and quality of clinical training in this country. That is my whole mission, and that's in my heart. That's my guiding light. Mary Harper is a little black girl that came up in the segregated South, and that quote made it. I left home on the back of a truck with $137 to my name, and I arrived at Tuskegee knowing that that was not enough money. But I said to the people at the registration, if you will take me and admit me, I will do you a service.
Mary, she went to college there, Tuskegee. Daddy taking her over there in a 36 Ford. We was on the back, me and my brother. It was 2 girls and 6 boys. And we all on the back. Dad had taken her over there to the school.
My mother did not want me to go to college. There were 8 of us children, and my mother felt like Mrs. Swift of the Swift Packing Company had a job, and she opened for a maid, and that I should accept that job instead of going to college. And I didn't like that idea. I had aspiration for college because during my childhood, I used to raise white mice, and I always wanted to be a researcher.
We had a hard time. Daddy, we had a father that tried to do his best for his children. And my brother Champ, Daniel, he went to school. He went off to college. Lily, she went to college. And he wanted the best for Mary.
When I got to Tuskegee, I told them I did not have enough money for tuition, but if they took me in and gave me a chance. I'm an A and B student. I know how to study, I know how to sacrifice, and I know how to work. So they accepted me.
She didn't have no help from home when she was in school, because when Dad had taken over there, it wasn't long before he passed, and she had to look like the dough fell out for her.
I worked different jobs in the community. I would take care of elderly people, I would clean house, I would wash and iron, and I did the shoes of doctors and nurses, polish their shoes in order to make enough money. But it was an act of God that every semester I came up with enough money to re-register for the next year. But it's tough not knowing where your money comes on whether you're going to register for the next year. When I first got to college, I was registered in business administration because my father was a businessman and he wasn't accepting nothing out of me other than to go into business. So I did. And my father died, and then I switched to nursing. It was the only thing that I could get into where there was money for me to go to school and I could work. So I got into nursing, and I finished nursing in 1941. And I finished as the best all-around student.
Thank the Lord, she made it. She did wonderful.
What Mary has given me is the value to go out and try to be the best that you can be. You're going to always have your knocks, but don't let your knocks knock you down. Just pick yourself up and keep going. And she's never been a quitter, and neither are we.
While I was a student on my senior year, I rotated through the Tuskegee Syphilis Project for my community experience. And there I had a chance to work with a man who had syphilis but was untreated. Now, we had no idea that those men did not know which was placebo and which was real treatment. But there was a real experiment. And so far as I know, I'm the only person living that worked in the Tuskegee Syphilis Project. Shortly after that, in my senior year, I also took care of Dr. George Washington Carver. And that was quite an experience. I gave him physical, emotional care. But when he would wake up and talk to me, I learned so much. For instance, I would tell him sometimes of the hardship I was having being a poor black girl. And I thought so much good advice that I got from him in terms of keeping my head in the books. I got to the University of Minnesota, and she said to me, "We have never had a black student before." And I said that to graduate, they start, and somehow their background, their knowledge and whatnot, they are unable to graduate. And I said, "You're looking at the first who is going to graduate. I don't have no money to go back to Alabama. I have no desire, and I'm too proud. I don't want you, because I am your token black, to pay any attention and favor me, because you make great leaders. I want you to make me like them. Don't feel sorry for me. I'm a tough woman, and I may scar, but I heal easily. So I want you to make me a great leader."
Every time has a time and its place. You know, even with the Civil Rights era, it came along during a time when it needed to take place. And even with Mary, she came along during a time when she was going to succeed no matter what was going on, what taking place. And it just gives you that inspiration to just say, hey, if she can, I can. And even under the circumstances, those times that she came up wasn't pleasant pretty much for anyone, you know, who was trying to succeed. Okay, but you just got to tell yourself, you know what, I'm not going to let that hinder me. I'm not going to let that stop me or keep me back. because in the end, if I succeed, then I help others to succeed. All heroes are those who people can look up and say as an example. She made the path for those to follow her as being that person who is a hero.
How you feel? How you feel today, Miss Harper?
Fine. Right now, I think my time is limited because I have metastatic cancer. And I have denied any further chemotherapy. And so I know sooner or later that cancer is going to pervade my body and I will die. I am preparing for that because I'm working on my will and I'm working on my trust, and I had the priest to already come in and to give me the last rites. My days are closing and I'm prepared for it. I have talked with my family, and I did something that most families don't do. I had my family to sit in on me planning my will, and it created some problems. But I think we have ironed those out. I don't know what morning I'm going to wake up, and that cancer will not have metastasized to another of my organs and carry me out. We finally decided that chemotherapy was causing me more harm than it was good. It took me a while to pray over, and all the chemotherapies they gave me made me worse. I decided I didn't want any more chemotherapy, that I knew that I would die of cancer. And so I then start pushing my will and pushing my trust. And I'm going to continue until that day when the Lord takes me. I don't want to go to a nursing home or dependent living. That's one thing with the time that's left. I want to die of natural causes. And I figure I will probably get pneumonia, or probably this cancer will spread to my lungs. So if I must go, and like that, I will go easy. That's how I feel about the time that is left. I feel that I'm trapped almost, because the quality and caliber of people that has to care for you is very poor. Your care is pretty much left in the hands of aides. I think the reason my blood pressure is up in the morning, I feel frustrated. Say, for instance, when the other nursing aide, she couldn't come until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got to lay in that bed and waste my time a day until she could come and bathe me and to get me up. And so I feel trapped that this American system is not set up to give quality care. It is set up for technicians, regardless of how sick you are or how complicated your disease are. It is a very dangerous condition. But how I feel, I'm trapped into it, and that's what this country offers. And I'm in better position than the average person because I know the healthcare system, and I have other people who teach in the system are going to question them about my care.
I was in clinic one day with Dr. Pippis, our medical director, and he told me, you need to make sure you meet this patient. She is a living piece of history, especially African-American history. Of course, this intrigued me.
How are you?
She walked in the room with Dr. Pippis, and I noticed that she kept looking at me because she wanted to find out more about me, and I told her about myself. I can't tell you how exciting this was to meet someone of this magnitude. She is strong as I don't know what, and we've seen, of course, many patients who are her age who have had cancers maybe not even as bad as hers, but they still, a lot of them did not have the strength and the stamina that she did. She continued to travel. She continued to go to the different speaking engagements. People still considered to call and consult her. And it was just amazing to watch her. She had that setback. We had to change up some of the treatments with her. Many people gave her very guarded prognoses at that time. But she bounced back. We still had to continue to change treatment regimens. But again, she bounced back. The challenges that she's had, she has still made a remarkable comeback at 86 years old. I have never seen such strength. It really is beautiful, and it just attests to the accomplishments that she's made, that determination and ambition, that, for her to just power through the way that she has.
I'm not going to sit at my kitchen table nor at this desk and say, come on, death. I'm going to continue my daily activities. I hope that if I could live until Mrs. Carter's new book come out on family caregiving, and I could see how well the book is going to sell and how well my chapter is going to wear in that. But I certainly know that's not holding of God. I had to pinch myself several times to see if I was Mary Harper. I was in my office working late one day, as usual. At 6 o'clock, the telephone rang. And she said, Mary, this is Tipper. I said, oh, my God, Tipper, how are you doing? She said, well, I'm going to do better if you say yes. I said, yes to what? And so she said, we want you to come down and head up the initiative and the issue of reforming the mental health system for the country. I said, my God, and my God, what a task. I had all psychiatrists on my committee and one statistician. All men. Here I go with men again. Now, needless to say, you know they had some reaction. First place, I'm a woman. I'm a nurse, social scientist, and I'm black. And I didn't forget that in my role in directing them in developing goals and letting them stay on the issue. The issue is reforming the mental health system as its structure exists. And I was responsible for developing all of the issues and 152 publications on what should govern the health care of the elderly for the next 10 years. I was very pleased that each of my assignments was because of my knowledge and my experience, and not what party I was a member of, not what color I was. And they made it very clear that I have probably had more comprehensive experience in the field of mental health in the past 60 years than anybody in the country. I like that. And they respected that. I like a good fight. I'm groomed for that, and I think Washington prepared me for that.
She's faced obstacles, first of all, being African American as well as being a woman. And she's also faced obstacles in being a Southerner. And when you think about Mary's potential, she spent a lot of time, even though she's had a lot of time, the time that she did have, she had to spend devoting that time to getting around obstacles.
I have an attitude of striving against adversities. I don't like too much peace. I like to overcome, and I like to be successful. I knew life was tough. And it was tough within my own family. and it was tough when it came to black and white. And I knew, as my father said, life would be no bed of roses. And I tell people, I could not have survived in a smooth working environment or a smooth working world like it is now. I could not have made my show. When people ask me who do I accredit my struggles and facing adversities and racism, I say to my father and to the good Lord.
Dr. Harper was particularly concerned that we have scientists in the United States that could address the needs of minorities and health disparities that minorities face. She clearly understood that the health problems of minorities would not be appropriately addressed nor adequately addressed until we had sufficient minority scientists who not only recognized those problems, but who actually were involved in designing the research and conducting the research that was so important for the health of minorities in this country.
You have an accountability to your patients to give them the best that you have. And don't let nothing, nobody's attitude, nor your own attitude, stand in the way of doing the best that you can. Always strive for excellence. And don't let nothing in your own little personality sidetrack you. After finishing 30 years in the Veterans Administration, Washington heard what I had done in interdisciplinary clinical research, and they talked to me about coming. By that time, my husband had died, and my husband died in 1963, and that was the year I was getting my PhD. I will never know how I made it, because I would be at his bedside all night and in the library all day, and then keep up my schoolwork. It was an act of God that I made it. But I did, and I finished my PhD in clinical psychology and medical sociology in 1963, the same year he died. And then the next year, I had cancer. And the next year, my daughter had cancer, and I lost her. And I thought that was my whole world, my husband and my daughter. I didn't feel I had any use in the world, and I just wanted to die.
The main thing that carried her through that was her faith. If she did not have her faith, she would not be able to make it that far as she made it today. I mean, she's going through some times now with her health, but you still see that she still has that drive to keep pushing, and she's not going to give up.
A lot of times I find myself acting like my aunt as I get older as far as advice that I give to young kids, and I tell them to always think and be self-sufficient and be independent. And I learned that from my Aunt Mary, and I find myself giving the same advice. And it reminds me of the sign that she used to have in her office. She still has it in her office, as a matter of fact. And it just stands out to you. Think. That's all it says. And I use that a great deal. Just think and always do the best job you can do. That's what she's always telling me. Common sense will take you a long way. And I use that to this day.
The nurse comes to bathe me at 11 o'clock in the morning. I usually get up and start out at 1. Then I'm in this office. And my day runs until 1 a.m. I don't take any pills, and I don't even drink sodas with caffeine in them. I'm just driven by my task and about accomplishing what I set out to do. If I have a project that's due by a certain date, I can sit right here in this office and work all night long until I see daybreak coming in there, until I finish the job that I have. Now, I'm an avid reader, and I subscribe to 16 journals per month. So I would say I spend a minimum of 2 hours a day or more reading, keeping up on things. A great deal of my day is spent on telephone for people wanting good research topics, people wanting to read their methodology to me, people asking for good references in family caregiving, or good reference in the area of assessment. My hobby to break some of that tension and stress, I like antique stores and the like, and I like to ride on the back roads of the countryside and visit old people and fruit stands. I never had much of a childhood because I always liked to stick up under my father. My father was a businessman, and he had great wisdom. He had acquired 20 pieces of property by the time he was 30 years old. And he required us not to be bothered with music, not to be bothered with going to dances, not being bothered with a good time and preoccupied with clothes, but be preoccupied with improving your brains. And his saying in the segregated South, if you improve your brains, nobody can take that from you. Whatsoever you do it well. I want you to go to college, but whatsoever you turn out to be, I want you to do your best. Don't shift and shard anything.
Her father was a heavy influence, and she used to quote a lot of his sayings to us growing up. And her pet peeve was, you have to think. You have to think, you have to take the initiative. Don't wait for anyone to tell you what to do. You see what needs to be done, you go take it. You go do it. Be aggressive. And go with fierce determination to get what you want. Those are some of the values that she has instilled into myself, my brothers, and pretty much anyone who has come in contact with her or been around her.
Mary is my aunt, and she's also my mother, because when my mother passed, she'd taken my brothers and I under her wings and reared all of us.
Well, after my mother had passed, my grandmother, she was raising us. And at the time, my Aunt Mary, she was living in New York. And I always say it's ironic how things happen in life, because at that time she had lost her daughter and husband, and we lost my mother and father. And it's funny how we came together and made a family for us. So it was like she was both parents. She would go out, work, do what she had to do, come home, still work, cook dinner, and still had the time to take us out to do things.
She showed us basically how to grow up to be men and really be accountable for what you do in life as men.
I was probably in my early teens, late teens, early 20. I was working, and one of the ladies in the office came up to me and said, "Oh, Paul, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you didn't have any parents. I didn't know you were an orphan." And that's when it hit me. I said, "Orphan? Me?" I never considered myself an orphan because the love that we had in the house, it was no different than someone that had both parents. So that's why I didn't see any difference. It was no difference to me. First, when we all moved in together in Cleveland. It wasn't as many clocks as there are now. So it was manageable. and it just seemed to take on a life of its own and just start to grow and grow. And at times it was hard to get to sleep because you'll have the chimes going off all the time, but you became accustomed to it because where else were you going?
I was fascinated with the hour of the history of time and the types of time clocks and the types of Wedgwood. So you get to collect it by virtue of chime, by virtue of the gear and the clock and the history of time. And when I knew anything, I had 137.
That's her passion. She loves her clocks. And every clock means something special to her. So I'm developing a passion for myself.
I have never been a clock watcher, and I have never put in an 8-hour day. My time goes by virtue of what project I'm on and completing it. I don't look at the clock. Many times I work all night long, and many times I go home at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I back at 8 and 9. I don't have a perception of time. I have a perception of committing my project and committing my aim in life.
Many times I've gone to bed at night and gotten up for the next day to go to school, and she was still down there working, never gone to bed. She was always writing speeches or writing chapters in books. At the time, she always had bills and she had some work to do. So I didn't really think much of it at that time, but looking back, she was down there pretty much rewriting history in front of my eyes and didn't even know it.
One of the things that Dr. Harper always pointed out was that we all had a contribution to make. And she didn't feel that you should focus just in one area, but you should be broadly educated. And she encouraged us all not only to get our PhDs, but to be broadly educated, to have an open mind, and to be constant learners.
I first met her when I was working at the Rosalind Carter Institute, and Dr. Harper was on a site review committee for some grants that we were going to give out, and I worked with her both on the scoring for the grants, and that was very interesting and helpful to me because she had a lot of experience on a national level that I didn't have. And she also was able to provide me later with some introductions and opportunities to reviewing grants on a federal level. So certainly was a mentor in both of those instances.
In her capacity within the extramural program of NIMH, has dispensed funds to, I think, more than 3,000 universities and more than 3,000 grants over the course of her career there. And she's well known by all the universities, and they've all wanted to make certain to establish or cultivate a relationship with her because of her access to grant programs. But also in terms of policy making, not only the conduct and the direction of scientific study of the elderly, but also legislation for mental illness as well as geriatrics at every level, state level, counties, and especially federal legislation. So she's had tremendous impact.
I find it amazing that even in her 80s, she's still practicing her career. She's still actively involved. And even though she's ill, she's still very much involved, still involved in developing policy, still involved in mentoring people and making a way for others to make their contributions to the nation.
The only hospital in the United States that was built as a geropsychiatric hospital is built in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and it's only about 10 minutes from where I was refused admission because I was black. It's a 220-bed hospital, fully accredited. And it is the only hospital in the United States named after a black woman.
This facility that opened in 1996 was named for Dr. Harper because of her historical work developing mental health services for the aging as well as for African Americans.
Now it is the only one in the state of Alabama.
The Harper Center serves all 67 counties of the state, which is kind of different from some of the other hospitals in our system that are serving different regions. The patients come here from all over the state to receive care. So our mission really is to make sure that we provide the best care possible in the briefest time period possible so that people can return to their homes or to a facility that's closer to their home community as quickly as possible.
And we give excellent patient care, and we don't use restraints. We work with behaviors, and we have counselors. And we train all our aides as counselors and nurses.
You're doing good. You're almost finished.
Before her health began to fail, she would meet with the clinical staff on an ongoing basis and, again, to address whatever needs we had. One of her major roles is she'll call up and say, is there anything that you need? You know, what's going on in terms of the budget? What's going on with the census? And are you having any difficulty recruiting? Is there anything that you need for me to talk with the commissioner about? I'm a taxpayer. I'm a taxpayer in the state of Alabama, and if I need to call the commissioner or the governor with respect to something that you need at the Harper Center, now you be sure to let me know. This is her legacy, and for as long as I'm here and for as long as this facility is open, I think we will continuously strive to provide the best care for the elderly citizens of the state of Alabama in the manner that would be acceptable to Dr. Harper.
All of the grandfather clocks are up until $1 million. I am giving those to the Harper Center, and they will use that money for a scholarship fund, and the staff there can use it for going to conferences, workshops, or taking short courses, and improving the quality of their skill. What I have done already, there is an endowed chair at Tuskegee for me, and there is a Mary Starke Harper lecture series that goes on in my profession of geropsychiatric nursing there. The other contribution is University of Pennsylvania, and all of my papers and books will go there. Johnson & Johnson is paying for the archivist and the historian. And this will be, I guess, an empty room. My daughter and my husband, but particularly my child, was my livelihood. I felt that was the primary reason I had to live for. I had brought a child into the world, and to help rear her with the help of God was what I looked at, carving out her life. When she went to high school, I tried to be at home at least one day a week, so when she and her friends came from school, I would have brownies for them. I hope life worshipped around her. And then when she finished college and was still complaining of a gastric upset, I wanted her to get in the hospital and for us to find out what that gastric disturbance that she's having all the time. And to our dismays, it was cancer of the small intestine. I remember her saying, which hurt me so bad, I had had cancer the year before. And she said, Mother, why is it I cannot recover like you? Why is it I'm dying? And I said, Billy, we don't know that you are dying. She said, well, the priest just came in and gave me the last rites. And I said, Billy, my heart is so heavy. I'm only human. I don't know what to say to you. I love you, and I wish you could live, and we have a happy life together. But I guess God knows best. This is tearing my heart up. And I don't have a word I can say to you that is consoling. She finally said, Mother, I'm tired of living like this. I want surgery. And, of course, after that, she had a lot of complications, and she never lived. Do I feel vulnerable? Well, all the women in my family who have died in the past 70 years have died of cancer. And so, as my daughter said, it runs in our family, but we had never had anyone as young as she was at the age of 25 to have cancer. At the National Cemetery, where my husband is, I had my daughter put in the same grave. And there's one other slot in that same grave, and that's for me. So I'll go in the National Cemetery in Jefferson Barracks. And I'll be the last of the Harpers to go in that grave.
I consider it a privilege to have known her. She has put so many minorities, tens of thousands, I think that's a modest number of minorities, into doctorate level training, MDs and PhDs. And I know myself that I've benefited greatly from some of the minority grants that I know if her name wasn't at the top, it was somewhere on that grant proposal. And I really appreciate the things that she's done in history for my family and for myself.
She's an inspiration. Certainly the things that she has accomplished has paved the way for minorities, women, to excel academically and in mental health care.
Your life is not judged by the amount of money you have or how many mink coats you have or what kind of car you have. Your life is judged by the satisfaction that you get from having other people. And I like the spots that I have been in that have given me an opportunity to carry out my mission in life. I have no regrets.
Dad will turn over in his grave. He'll be one of them. He think, if he knowed, he'll think the world of her today. That's what he wanted her to be the best.
When her time comes or expires, she knows everything is still going to be taken care of because myself, Ronald, Paul, and myself, she raised us, and we're her boys, so we know that everything's going to be okay regardless.
Thank you for being there. Thank you for being my mother, my father, and the love you have shown myself and my brothers will always stay with me until the day I die.
I love her, and always have, and always will. I just love her.